Welcome to the channel. Today we're going to replace the spark plugs on a Toyota VVTi 1.8 liter engine.
This was used in a lot of vehicles, including the Toyota Corolla, Toyota Matrix, also the Pontiac Vibe, among some others. So first thing you need to do is remove the plastic cover. So remove the oil cap, and then there are two nuts on top that will have to be removed, and then two clips in the back. And once you pull those off, the plastic cover will lift right off. And also put your oil cap back on so you don't get dirt in the engine. At this point, it's a good idea to take a vacuum or something similar to the top of the valve cover, try and get as much dirt off as possible. Another option is you can take some compressed air and do the same thing. I mean, the main idea is just that you don't want dirt inside of the cylinders because we're going deep into the engine here as we take the spark plugs out. Alright, so you'll need a 10 millimeter to remove the bolts that hold on the coil packs. There's a couple things you're going to need to do here. You're going to have to get the wiring harness out of the way. You're also going to have to unclip each coil pack, the electrical connector. And of course, as you see me doing here, you're going to have to take off the bolts that hold the coil packs on. So what order you choose to do that doesn't really matter as long as you get it all done. In this case, I just did the bolts first because it was easier. Now I'm going to remove the electrical connectors. Sometimes they're a little tough, but if you push down on the tab and give them a little wiggle, they'll come right out. And then last but not least, you got to remove the nuts that hold down the wiring harness. And there are two nuts. One I just removed there, and then this is the second nut. Once you get those removed, you can then take the wiring harness just kind of off of the top of the valve cover there. It's clipped in a few other places, but you don't need to do anything further down the line. Just wiggle it off here and kind of set it off to the side so that it's out of your way. So now you can remove a coil pack. So in this case, I'm going to pull this one and set it off somewhere safe. Remember, only do one of these spark plugs at a time so that you make sure you do them right. So next you're going to get a spark plug socket, 5/8 spark plug socket to be exact, either one that has a little rubber insert or some sort of magnetic insert so that it grabs onto the spark plug when you take it out. So go ahead and put that down into the cylinder, fit it on top of the spark plug, and loosen it. This is not, and I repeat, not a time to get loosening and tightening mixed up. These threads go straight into the cylinder head, and if you over tighten or strip or cross thread these, you effectively total the engine. I mean, you can take the head off and replace it, but that's way more substantial and a lot of work, and if you have someone else do it, it's going to cost you a fortune. So be very, very careful with these spark plug threads. So here's the first plug. It actually doesn't look too bad, but these have a lot of miles on them, so I am going to replace them anyway. Quick trip to the parts store, got these Bosch double iridium. Man, that sounds fancy. I wish I knew what that meant, but supposedly these are good. Now when you take these out of the box, you're supposed to check the spark plug gap. They're gapping tools at most of your major auto part stores. In this case, I've had really good luck with Bosch's pre-gapped. These are set supposedly pre-gapped. I'm going to trust them. And then on the top of the spark plug, you're going to want to add some dielectric grease. Your future self or future owners of the car will thank you because it'll allow you to get this apart in the future. So just put a little bit on the end and spread it around. And once you have the top of the spark plug greased, go ahead and put it back in your spark plug socket. And then at this point, you are going to want to add some anti-seize to the threads. Now this is definitely not optional. If you don't do this, you could get the plug stuck in the head, and as we discussed earlier in the video, that's a bad day. You don't want to do that. So go ahead and add a little bit of anti-seize, close enough. Add some anti-seize to the threads to make sure that you don't get it stuck. With the anti-seize on, go ahead and by hand start threading your spark plug back into the spark plug hole or spark plug well. You'll notice that the ratchet isn't attached, and that's on purpose. you're much less likely to cross thread or strip when you do this by hand, and it's a lot easier to keep it straight when you don't have the ratchet on that. So go ahead and tighten it by hand, and then get out your ratchet. Now, I cannot emphasize enough that these are threaded into the head. You can easily strip these out and basically ruin your engine. You do not want to go crazy on these. Just barely past snug is where you want these. Be careful. I know you ate your Wheaties this morning, but it's not time to show off your strength. Alright, with the spark plug in, I'm going to go ahead and put the coil pack back on. And again, these are held down by 10 millimeter bolts. So I'm going to put that in and snug it up. Now I just showed the process for one cylinder. Obviously you're going to want to do this for all four. And make sure for each and every one that the 10 millimeter hold down bolts are in and tight. And then what I like to do at this point is put the wiring harness bracket back on. So that's also held down by these two nuts. Get those on and get those snugged up. And last but not least, you're going to want to reconnect all of the coils and just snap the little plastic connector back into place, just like you found it. Conveniently, the lengths of the wires are such that you can't screw these up.
So after you got it all hooked up, start it up before you put the cover back on. Make sure everything runs and sounds like you expect it to. This one's running like a top.
When you're all done, put the cover back on just like you removed it. And that's it for this particular job. Hope you enjoyed the video. And it's worth mentioning that it took quite a bit of effort to condense this down to 7 minutes. A lot of recording, editing goes into these. Subscribe, it's free, helps you and me.